This is the University of North Carolina Institute for the Environment's Clean Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Reese, and I welcome you to another episode of the Institute's Clean Tech Podcast series. The Institute will host the second annual Clean Tech Summit in 2015 on the 19th and 20th of February. And over the next several months leading up to that summit, the Institute for the Environment will talk with a number of leaders in the clean tech field on this podcast about the emergence of the industry in North Carolina and the role that academic institutions like UNC play in advancing the clean tech sector. And for this episode, we're excited to be joined by John Morrison, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs with Strata Solar, a leading solar development company based in Chapel Hill. And John, tell our listeners a little bit about Strata Solar's business and the areas around North Carolina and really across the country that you work in. And then what kind of economic benefits do you bring to those communities?
Well, Shane, thank you. Strata is a solar developer and builder that also owns and operates many of the solar farms that it builds. We're a 5-year-old company that had great success growing to become one of the largest solar businesses in the country. What we do is build moderate-sized solar farms, typically on the order of 40 acres, most of them here in North Carolina. We sell the electricity from those solar farms to the electric utilities, primarily Duke and Dominion here in the state. We've been fairly successful over the past 2.5 years, having moved into that business from origins in smaller scale residential commercial solar, but saw the opportunities here in North Carolina for the larger scale utility type solar and have been doing that for the past 2.5, 3 years. In that time, we've managed to bring close to $1 billion of investment to North Carolina. And it's that investment that has the real big economic impact that's occurring in North Carolina. We build solar farms at a fairly rapid clip. Our typical 5 megawatt, 40 acre solar farm will be completing one about every a week to 10 days. It takes about 11 weeks to build a single farm, but we have multiples in construction. And as a result, we have lots of people employed in building those farms. I think over the past 2.5 years, we've trained well over 1,500 individuals in solar construction just to help us build those farms. What also happens is that those farms get built in rural parts of the state and represent significant increases to the tax base for those rural counties that are located in. A typical farm, in many cases, will be the largest improvement or increase in a county's tax base in many, many years. One legislator shared with us that impact. He likened a solar farm that we were doing a ribbon cutting on. The tax base increase was equivalent to 2 textile mills for that particular county. And as a result, what counties are seeing is lots of additional revenue. And the beauty of solar is, of course, that's new revenue without need for new roads or schools or water and sewer, without the investment in infrastructure. So it's pretty much all upside counties in which we're working. And then finally, there are the landowners, the farmers that we typically lease these properties from. They will lease to us a portion of their land holdings, and they're more than happy to do so because it represents a new source of income in what is a struggling farm economy. And it's an income that's very sure. We will sign long-term leases with these folks, and as long as the sun comes up in the morning and we're producing electricity, we'll be able to pay those lease payments. But for those landowners, it really is an opportunity for them to maintain their farming heritage, to keep the property in the family, and for many of them, this is property that's been in the family for generations, but at the same time provide income that they would not otherwise have. And so for all of that, it's a huge economic benefit to North Carolina. I think the industry as a whole over the past 5 years has produced more than 18,000 jobs in the whole clean tech arena, and the solar industry in general has brought in over $2 billion in investment to the state.
It sounds like you've developed some symbiotic relationships and contributed to an accomplishment for the state overall. North Carolina was second in the nation last year in installed solar capacity. What do you think is driving that success? And then looking forward, are there any challenges or issues ahead that could slow down the rapid growth of the solar industry in the state?
Well, the success is due to the fact that we have reasonably good solar resources. It's not quite as good as the desert Southwest, Arizona and Nevada and the like. But as most residents here in the state know, we get a fair bit of sunshine throughout the course of the year. We also have very stable and effective public policy regarding renewable energy in the state. The energy industry in general, not just renewables across the board, is a highly regulated industry and is very dependent upon and subject to the policies of the state. Energy tends to be, particularly electrical energy, tends to be regulated at the state level. And North Carolina has had a long tradition of relatively stable policies that have made it possible to do what we're doing. Some of the rules that we're operating under at the Utilities Commission, for example, that allow us to sell the electricity to the utilities have been in place since the 1980s. That sort of stability really helps the company come in and know that the playing field is not going to be changed, put a business model together and work. And then finally what's happened is that the cost of solar has come down dramatically the past several years. And so that combination of nice stable policy along with the fall in prices is really what's enabled it. And the policies have been in place for a long time, but it's only with the advent of much, much lower cost solar that we really see the explosion take off.
My last question, John, talk about the value UNC provides to your industry, and how does Strata Solar benefit from being located right here in the Triangle where the clean tech industry is thriving?
Well, solar is a new industry, and as such, there is no existing base of workforce, folks that are familiar with the industry. And so we're absolutely dependent upon places where we can find folks or develop and train them. And being in the Triangle area with the schools that are here, UNC and the like, we're able to find young, enthusiastic individuals who are looking for new career opportunities and are willing to consider new industries such as solar. And as such, we're then able to hire them, bring them on board, bring them up to speed. It really is the case that in a new industry where there is no existing workforce, you really have to look to the schools, the universities, the training grounds to really find the workforce that you're going to need.
He's John Morrison, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for Strata Solar. Thank you for your time today, John. And on behalf of the Institute for the Environment, I pass along our strong appreciation to Strata Solar for its strong support of last year's Clean Tech Summit, and we look forward to your participation in 2015.
Shane, I appreciate it. We certainly will. Everything that's happening here in the Triangle and Clean Tech is, I think, a marker for the rest of the industry.
Thank you again, John. You've been listening to the University of North Carolina Institute for the Environment's Clean Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Reese, and to learn more about the North Carolina Clean Tech Summit, visit the Institute's website at www.ie.unc.edu.